One of the key things that I learned at Southwest Airlines was critical conversations and building trust. The way that I was raised, this was not something like we had critical conversations around the house. You pretty much did what you were told, and if you argued, that was not a good thing. When I was growing up, I hung out with people who thought a lot like I did. You know, it's nice to have sympathetic people support your ideas. That's one of the things that I realized is that if you're building a team and everybody thinks like you do, it's like, why do you need a team? So it's really important to have different ideas, people coming from different places. You know, people can get into arguments. Somebody is saying something where, you know, they're criticizing the person versus criticizing the ideas or the behavior. Well, then you have to. Hi, I'm Ed Wilson, and you're listening to Tech Legacies Podcast.
Welcome to the Tech Legacies video podcast, where every week and every episode we come to you with a technology executive sharing their career stories, advice, insights, and lessons to help you grow your tech career. So welcome everybody. This episode, I am pleased to announce that our guest will be Ed Wilson. Ed, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I just want to share with the audience here some of your past, because you've had quite the journey, Ed, and I find it fascinating. So currently, you are the professor of mathematics at UT Arlington, but before that, you had over 2 decades at Southwest Airlines, going from developer all the way to senior enterprise architect. And then before that, you were also a professor of mathematics at the University of Dallas. So
yes.
You've gone academia, corporate, back to academia.
Yes, back to the beginning.
Yes. Why those transitions? What made you do all those switches?
Wow. So I would say going from academics into industry the first time, that was a big change.
Yeah.
And like most things, there were lots of things going on. I made the change right when the first internet bubble happened. And so that was a very exciting time. You know, it's like this brand new thing. The internet was out there, and people were getting in, and there was a lot of interesting things going on. And so I decided to make that change. It was a very difficult change because I love teaching. But then I got into industry and got to do consulting, and eventually became an architect, and I enjoyed that very much too.
I'm always curious what shifts people though. Like why move from teaching to industry? Like was there a pivotal decision or catalyst that prompted you to do that? So
there was, at that point in time, a lot of things happening in my life. So I'll be honest about one thing, and that was I had a new family. I had my 3rd child was born, and if I moved into industry, I made more money. Yeah. And so, you know, that's a big driver. So, you know, that was certainly part of it. But part of it was, you know, I'd been hearing about, you know, the internet. This is, you know, this brand new thing, and I'm seeing friends and people, you know, dive in, and I'm like, wow, I can do that too. Yeah. I had done some computer programming in college and numerical analysis, mathematical kind of things, but I started getting into C and C++, and I enjoyed that. It's funny when you're doing development, it's a much more immediate gratification. Like you write code, you compile it, you run it, you see, wow, I just built this. Yeah. When you teach, I mean, sometimes you don't know what you've done until, you know, I mean, like literally years later, right. You know, when you see the students.
You don't see the impacts.
You don't see the impacts, you know, day to day. And so, you know, I gave it a try, and then I made the decision. Okay, I'm gonna make the shift. So I did that.
Now we all hear. I mean, Southwest Airlines is such a well-known brand, and so well-known. And I remember when we were prepping for this call, I asked you, what would you like to talk about? What topic are you passionate about? And one of the things that stood out to you during your time there was leadership, right? Everything you learned around leadership. You went from developer, which is, I guess, a very tactical kind of role, all the way to senior enterprise architect, which is architecting the whole system and things like that. Tell us about that, the leadership lessons that you learned along that way.
Sure. So at least when I started out in technology, it was a very, very, I was not a leader. I'm working on producing, I'm writing the code, that I'm trying to write.
Right?
The doer.
Yeah.
And then as my career progressed in Southwest Airlines, I got into more and more leadership positions, but they're technical leadership and not as much people management. However, I will say architects at Southwest Airlines, they are people leaders. So, I went to the same training that regular managers and directors went to. And I will say, my experience at Southwest Airlines, they do a great job of leadership training. I did not appreciate what a great job they did until I did some consulting after I retired from Southwest and got to see what was going on in some other companies. And it's like, I realized, wow, Southwest really does a great job. I very much was very fortunate to have had the opportunity to get the leadership training I did at Southwest.
What were some of those key leadership lessons you learned?
So one of the key things that I learned at Southwest Airlines was critical conversations and building trust. And this is something, I just have to say, the way that I was raised, this was not something like we had critical conversations around the house.
Yeah.
You pretty much did what you were told, and if you argued, that was not a good thing. And
Just like school.
Yeah,
we shouldn't argue with the teacher. Right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, you got in trouble. Well, I got in trouble that way anyway. But we had training where it was like in the training, pick 3 people out that you're having some conflict with and go have a crucial conversation with them right now. And, just learning to address conflict, unhealthy conflict, like immediately, and turning it into constructive conflict, which is great. That's important. It's important that you talk to other people and understand where they're coming from. Let them know where you're coming from. That's part of the training. And once I learned that behavior, it was something that I really tried to practice. Is not address things very quickly, very openly, face to face. That was a great thing that I learned there.
That was uncomfortable though, right? Obviously. What was the tactic that they taught to kind of like manage that discomfort? And that?
A lot of it is doing it and
doing it even if it's uncomfortable.
Even if it's uncomfortable, but being very honest, being very direct, listening to the other person, realizing the other person, they have their own motivations. Just because somebody disagrees with you, it doesn't make you stupid or them stupid. It means that they have different things that are important to them than you do. You need to learn what are those things. And when you can come to a common understanding of what's important to both of you, then that helps you be able to work out, how can we get to a common goal where both of us are meeting, some of our needs, so we can compromise and move forward.
What was something else you learned along leadership lines?
So one of the things that I learned was building a team that had diversity of thought on it. And I think a lot of times when I was growing up, I hung out with people who thought a lot like I did. It's nice to have sympathetic people support your ideas or whatever, but that's one of the things that I realized is that if you're building a team and everybody thinks like you do, it's like, why do you need a team? So it's really important to have different ideas, people coming from different places. And I will say, when you get a lot of different ideas on the team, you have to go back to, it's important that you manage that, because people can get into arguments. You need to make sure that you're always communicating and make it constructive conflict rather than destructive conflict. And so that was something, and again, it's not easy, but it's one of those things that you definitely have to watch the discussions. And when you see people are not, they're not being healthy in the discussion, you need to, again, one of the things I would do is like get them together. Okay, let's have a meeting, the three of us, and let's talk about this and make sure that we're communicating.
Do those conversations ever get heated?
Oh, sure. Sure.
How do you manage that?
Again, I mean, you've got to be in there. You got to keep talking. You got to call people on it. If somebody is saying something where, they're criticizing the person versus criticizing the ideas or the behavior, well, then you have to call people on that and keep control of it. It's not easy. That's not easy. But I mean, that's part of having a team. And that's the way that you're going to get the best ideas out of your team, is if everybody is okay with putting their ideas out there and people are willing to discuss. I'll tell you another thing that was actually very nice about the last team that I was on is I had some people on the team that were natural peacemakers. So that was, again, a good kind of talent to have on the team is somebody who was there who could, help bring the temperature down and help, try to see people where they were agreeing and, talk about how can we get past the disagreement. I mean, again, it's not that you're never going to have disagreements, but it's at some point in time you have to reach a consensus. You have to move forward, and that's the thing that I would say is like, okay, we can argue amongst ourselves. When we leave the room, we want to be rowing in the same direction, and it's important to have that communication with the team.
Are there key ingredients to the makeup of the teams that you put together? Like you mentioned, there's the role of a peacemaker, right? And then the diversity of thought. What other kind of ingredients would you throw into that building a team?
So I think one of the things that you're going to find in a high-performing team is, you want a high-performing team. You want people on the team that everybody is really striving to do the best that they can do. And I guess one of the things that I would say is you're not always able to just go out and choose. I mean, you build the team with who you have the opportunity of getting. But one of the things that is important to me, and I will just say it's very aggravating, but it's great to have somebody. It's having a questioner, having somebody that just questions everything. And and it's a good thing. Like I said, it can be aggravating because it's like, could you just calm down for a minute? But having somebody who can question, again, they have to be not doing it in a destructive way. They have to be trying to get people to really support their ideas and fill in the details. So that's very good. As I said before, a peacemaker on the team. It's a helpful thing if you're a leader and you have to manage, these different personalities, these different intellects. If you have somebody who can help you kind of bring the temperature down when you need to. Another thing is having somebody on the team that's willing to charge up a hill while being shot at with a machine gun. Having somebody who is, will go out there and
be the bulldog almost.
Be the bulldog, exactly. Be the bulldog. That's a great way to say it. Having somebody like that on the team is a great asset, because it's like there's some times when you just need to point somebody at an objective and say, and it's almost like you don't even have to say go do it. It's like, okay, I just pointed them in this direction and they're gonna, they will pursue it.
As the leaders of that team, did you end up having to wear all these multiple hats yourself, or?
No, because that's one of the things and I'll just say it's a kind of a pet peeve of mine is when I see leaders who are trying to do everything on the team. I mean, that's not the job of the leader. The job of the leader is to give the people on the team the opportunity to do the things that they're good at, and then to stretch them to try to, be better, to grow. But it's like leaders, I often think about this, I taught 4 teenagers how to drive, and the way that you teach somebody to drive is you got to put them in the driver's seat. They can't learn to drive by watching you drive. They have to sit in the driver's seat. But the thing is, while they're learning to drive, you can't be like nitpicking them about every little thing. You just kind of like, if they started to drive off in the ditch, I would say something, right. But you just got to let them drive as much as you can. So, let them do their thing. Sometimes I would say, I think I would do that differently, but the way they're doing it is okay. That's good enough. And so it's much better to let them do that than for me to step in. Now, sometimes if it was something where, I'm not going to let somebody drive off the road, I'm not going to let somebody drive over a cliff. So you step in at that point. But, to me, that's part of being a good leader is having the right amount of hands-offness.
Got it. Did you have to do a lot of mentoring to grow your team to the level that was expected for them to be effective?
Yes, and I will say at Southwest Airlines, if you're an architect, there are like five things that you are 5 areas that for your expectations, and one of them is technical leadership. But what they mean by technical leadership in that case is mentoring. It's important that you're growing the people on your team. It's important that you're growing other people outside of your team. And that's one of the things actually that I find about the leadership opportunities that I got, like at Southwest Airlines. To me, it felt a lot like teaching, in the fact that you are successful when the people you're working with are successful. That's how you measure your success. It's not what I do myself, it's what my team does. That's my measure of success.
Any mentoring tips?
Again, what I was saying before is you're always trying to stretch people just the right amount. You don't want to break them, but you want to move them out of their comfort zone just enough. And I would say the same thing with students, that when you're trying to teach them something, it's not just doing something rote and they do the same thing over and over again. To make a B, to make an A, you have to do stuff that you've never seen before. And be successful at that. But again, you don't set the objective so far out that people are going to fail. You have to push them. You want them to grow. That's important. I will tell you another thing is always talking to them and saying, so what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What can I do to help you get where you want to go versus what I'm thinking that they should do.
I want to pause real quick here and give a special shout out to one of our sponsors, CG Infinity. I've worked with them for several years now, and I can truly say that they have one of the best workplace cultures that I've ever experienced. And they specialize in a variety of industries, especially energy, utilities, and financial services. And they serve them through their Salesforce, cloud, as well as customer experience services. So thank you, CG Infinity, and I hope you'll support them as they have supported us here at the podcast. Yeah. Excellent. A lot of things, there's a lot of parallels between your teaching career and your leadership career, right?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, I really believe that I have a teacher's heart, and I use that in technology and being a technology leader.
And so now let's go to your shift from industry to another career, basically, in teaching again. What was the deciding factor for you to go back to teaching?
So basically I retired.
Yeah.
I retired. This is, I am teaching for fun. This is my...
Because you could have easily gone fishing.
Exactly, that's right. I could be fishing, I could be traveling Europe. My wife would be probably happier if I were doing that, but I'm somebody who I don't feel good if I don't feel like I'm bringing value, and I like being around college-age students. I mean, they're loads of fun. I mean, they're very bright. They're excited about stuff. To see the transformation that happens between, when the freshmen come in and they don't even know why they're there, to when they're juniors and seniors and they've really matured and they understand what they want to do, at least at the beginning of their career. It's exciting. So that's just a lot of fun.
Believe in? What are there certain like commonalities you see across the new wave of college students right now?
Commonalities across the...
What do they want out of life? What do they want out of their careers?
I don't know if I would say like there's common things. I have students that range in what they want. I mean, if you look at freshmen, and I teach a lot of freshman classes, is that you'll see that the students, a lot of times when they're going to college, they're not sure what they want to do. As they take courses, and again, I'm teaching math, and so a lot of them are very technical people, you see the students getting interested in the topic that you see them being engineers, or you see them being scientists or whatever. They really get into the subject matter. And so I think that's the thing that is interesting to me, is to see the students after class or before class. We're having conversations in the hall, and they're talking about engineering, or they're talking about physics or something like that. They're not. I guess they probably don't come and talk to me about music or whatever. I wish they did. I like music a lot, but
Yeah.
I get in the conversations where they're interested in their subject. So I think in some ways it's like things have always been at colleges. I think
It's like they're in discovery mode. Right?
Yes, yeah, they're in discovery
They're still figuring it out.
And I will say probably one of the things that's different now than a long time ago is that there's a lot of different possibilities that are offered by the technology, and I think technology is a wonderful tool. There's so many interesting things that they can do now with the new technology. I'll just say you don't want to use it as a crutch. You want to use it as a tool. But there's a lot of things that these students get to do now because the technology is there. I remember, when I was a student and when I was first a professor, there were, kind of things that we were only dreaming of. And now, if you look at the James Webb Telescope and you look at, the gravity wave detectors, ChatGPT, you have all these things that are just, we wouldn't have thought you could. We were imagining that you could do this, but they're real. They're real now.
I was watching Star Trek, seeing these inventions.
Yeah, you have communicators. That's one of the things that I tell students all the time is like, your cell phone has more computing power than what we use to get to the moon.
All we need is beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah,
the final invention.
I'm not going to be the first person to try that. I'm not doing that.
Dissolve into molecules.
Yes. I'm not in favor of anything that if it messes up, I disappear.
Your biology, so there's obviously the technical, mathematical side of things that they learn. But a lot of things that we talked about earlier in the conversation is the soft skills.
Yes.
Right? How are we developing those soft skills in college students so that they're prepared for that other side as they start their careers?
Sure. So one of the things I will just say in general is I do talk to students about what does it take to actually discover new things. How do you do that? And talk about the human part of the discovery and the science. Talk about the personalities and understanding that this is all a human endeavor. But one of the things that we do in pretty much every class is we do project-based learning. And so, like in the calculus classes, we have labs where the students are working together in small groups, and they're given challenging problems to solve. And part of it, they're, basically given a little bit too much work for anybody to do by themselves. And so they have to work together as a team. But again, part of what they're learning how to do is how to bring their peers along. In other words, it's not just, am I successful, but can I communicate with the other people in my group successfully? And that's one of the discussions that I think students kind of don't understand. If they're a student that is, they think that they're having other people in their group having to tell them a lot of stuff. I said, you realize that those people teaching you, they're learning way more. If they get the opportunity to teach somebody else, that's a very effective way to learn. But one of the things that they have to do is figure out, how do you actually work with people in a group? In other words, how do you deal with the person that wants to do everything and is going to do it all themselves? Or how do you deal with the people who don't do anything? They don't show up. What do you do then? And that's one of the things that we talk about, is like, that's the way it is in real life. Once you get out in the real world, you almost never will do anything that you just do by yourself. It's always part of a team, a small team or a big team.
Well, every IT project, every project implementation or delivery is made up of team members.
Yes.
Right? Every project, every IT request that comes through needs a team, right?
That's right. And they're going to have to learn to be part of a team, and they're going to have to learn how to deal with different personalities on a team.
What do you think is something that, for college students that are watching this podcast, any kind of advice for them as they navigate the 4 years or however number of years in college that could be like a ingredient for success for them?
Well, I'll say one of the things that I did as a student, and it works for me, so I can't say what's going to work for everybody, but and I definitely did this in graduate school, and that is, again, the whole thing about learning, it is, to me, it's a human endeavor. It's a thing about personalities, and so I would intentionally work my schedule so that I took classes from who I thought was the best professor that I could get. And the best might be somebody who fits my personality, or the best might be they are just, some kind of super outstanding person in their field.
That's hard to know though, right? Hard to figure out which professor suits you more if you don't know them.
So I will just say, when I was an undergraduate, I went to a big state school, and there were lots of professors, and you don't know when you come in as a freshman.
Yeah.
But you do learn about people's reputations. You do learn about, their personalities. Students talk to each other. They know what, people are like. And I specifically chose my graduate school I went to work with a specific person. And it's really funny that I had seen this professor really giving their student a hard time in a lecture of theirs that I attended. He was really pushing his student very hard. He's not in a mean way, but very much, making sure that person really crossed the T's and dotted all the I's. And whatever it was in me, I was like, oh, I want to go work with him. But then I went to graduate school, and he beat me into shape, and it was, I will say, it was a beating, but I needed that. I needed
Made
somebody.
You a better person.
Yeah, I think that's what turned me into a mathematician, was having somebody that really challenged me. And so that's one of the things I tell students all the time. It's like, if you choose a graduate school, and you go to graduate school and you don't feel like you're stupid, you don't feel like you're getting beaten down, you went to the wrong place. That's when you go to graduate school or go to professional school, become a doctor, become a lawyer, you want to go someplace that's really going to push you, that really will make a big difference. I mean, again, you don't want it to kill you,
right?
but you don't
Just enough, though.
Yeah. You don't want it to be something like you go there and it's like, oh, well, this is easy, easy breezy. It's like you want it to be a step.
Yeah.
You notice, oh, this is definitely harder
Yes.
than what it was.
Now, you have a PhD in philosophy and applied mathematics.
Oh, no, it's a doctor of philosophy,
Doctor.
right? Yeah, so, and
Yes.
that's just the title. That's
Got
just the
it.
title, yeah. So, it's applied mathematics.
But I always think like that's a very unique combination because it's almost like left brain plus right brain combo.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to ask you about your thoughts of AI because that's definitely the hot topic these days. But in this world of AI, and especially with more students that are going to be using ChatGPT to speed up their work and automate things, how do we continue to have creativity and new inventions and balance that with governance and things like that, and ethics?
So one of the things I don't know the answer to, I think stuff like ChatGPT and in general AI right now can do a very, very good job. I mean, it could do a good job of writing term papers. It can do a good job of even writing code. It can do a good job of solving math problems that are of a type that have been solved.
Yeah.
I don't know if AI, at least where things are right now, and I could be wrong about this, but the big sea changes that happen, the real aha moments, like, when you look at Isaac Newton coming up with, I have a mathematical model and I can make physical predictions from that. Or, the folks who came up with quantum mechanics, or even the people who came up with AI itself, these big, really jumps in very creative kind of things. I don't know if it can do that kind of thing. To me, that still seems like that's a very human endeavor. That's something, and again.
And it needs that almost like spark of
Exactly,
inspiration.
exactly.
Or you and I were geeking out about Foundation on Apple TV, and like in it talks about like you have your model, but there's always anomalies, right?
Right.
Or like one
Yes.
random person that thinks of something, and then from there it shifts, right?
Yes, and the thing that you just reminded me of, and this is a personal example, but I have two sons, and they're both very bright, but they're very bright in their own ways. So like when I played chess with them, my oldest son, he's very linear. I feel like I'm playing a steamroller where it's like I can see this thing coming, it's just coming, it's coming, it's coming, and it's just going to crush me. When I play my youngest son, I'm like playing along, I think I'm doing great, I think I'm just beating him, and all of a sudden he makes some move, and I'm like, where did that come from? All of a sudden I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm in big trouble, just out of the blue. Very intuitive kind of jump. And that's the thing. I don't know how good. Now, I think we have great chess playing programs. You understand? I'm not talking about playing chess. It's that out of left field, that jump that you don't see coming, where somebody just looks at something in a different way, and all of a sudden, boom. I think AI is more like my older son, where it's a steamroller coming.
It's predicting based on past behaviors.
Yes.
Right? There's no new input. It's looking at past and then modeling that.
Yeah, and it's very good at going out there and gathering all the information and seeing, oh, okay, here are the patterns that happen. But it's like, how do you find the new pattern? And again, I'm not saying that you can't have that with AI. I'm just saying I don't know if I see that. And that to me, that's the exciting thing. that I see in, in human creativity, whether it's in, math, sciences, or, I love reading Scientific American because they have great articles. I read about, psychology. I read about, even they have social sciences in there. So it's always something, they have something in there, and I'm just like, wow, how did they think of that? When they're talking about some kind of behavior pattern or, something in biology or something, it's always, wow, that's so super cool. But it's the new stuff. It's the jump. Suddenly, something is very clear, that you had no idea was there before.
Do you see that in your students, where somebody comes along and they almost like unconsciously spark a new idea or a new way of doing things?
Yes, I have to say, one of the students that I had work with me a long time ago, he was just super intuitive. He was it was so funny that I could give him a very complicated problem that I would think it would take days for him to solve. And he would come back and he would have the solution, very quickly. But then when we start digging into how he found it, he would have these little errors all over the place. But it turned out that he saw the big picture. He saw what the answer would be. So it's like, it wasn't linear thinking at all. It was like the opposite of that. And so that whenever, I talked to him, it was just one of those things I was always fascinated, like, how did you get this?
Yeah.
And that's just the way his brain worked. And
do you think intuition is something we're just born with? Or can it be taught?
I hope it can be taught. And I think it can. I do spend a lot of time in my classes saying, now, why would somebody think of this? Or what kind of things would you do that would make you, approach the problem in the way that, Newton, or in the way that, somebody else decided? Why did they have this idea? What would point them in that direction?
It wasn't the apple that fell from the tree.
No, I mean, that might have had something to do with it. But I think Newton's a perfect example of somebody who they had so many jumps in so many different areas. I mean, they just looking at things in different ways, and he's somebody that, I mean, the modern understanding of color, Newton is responsible for that. A lot of people don't associate, the work he did in optics, the fact that color is different wavelengths of light, he came up with that. And it's that kind of thing. It's like looking at something in a totally different way, and understanding something.
So Ed, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? What do you want to be remembered for?
What I want to be remembered for. I would like people to remember me. If I think about my students, somebody they would want to, after class, go up and talk to. Talk to them. Whether it's I have another question about what we said in class, or I'm interested in this, can you help me learn about this? I would like to feel like I'm approachable and I can help people that way.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing all your insights and lessons and tips and advice, both for professionals as well as students. And I think there's many, many more decades that you'll be giving back to the community.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you in the audience. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, please be sure to like and ring that bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tech Legacies, as well as to subscribe to our podcasts across Apple, Spotify, and all the other channels. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Ed, for your time. And we'll see you next time on Tech Legacies. At Tech Legacies, we're all about helping technology professionals grow and succeed in their careers by sharing the advice of top technology executives. If you're looking to take your career to the next level and become a technology executive yourself, we have an exciting program to tell you about. It's called the Tech CXO Excellence Program by Tech CXO Launchpad, and they are our partners. They're offering an immersive, multimodal program developed and taught by current and former CIOs and CTOs who are passionate about building the next generation of C-suite technology executives. And you'll experience a full immersion into the C-suite world and also get to collaborate, network, and experience capstone-style projects with other professionals. And this is all while benefiting from face-to-face interactions in person with industry guest speakers. It is exclusively for a new level of C-suite executives and C-level direct reports and second directs who are earmarked for succession planning and career growth. To join their waitlist, register your interest at www.techcxolaunchpad.com. That's techcxolaunchpad.com. This program has everything you need to take your career to the next level.